Hi, everybody. I'm John Chrastka with EveryLibrary. I'm the executive director of an organization that is politically active. We're a political action committee for libraries. We work on local library ballot measures. We work on funding for libraries, and we work on the opportunities around to have conversations with Americans around. Oh, we're getting some feedback here. My apologies. Let me start from scratch again. Hey, everybody. I'm John Chrastka. I'm executive director for an organization called EveryLibrary. We're a political action committee for libraries. The work that we do is with local library ballot measures, with the funding for libraries, and also to fight book bans and censorship. Tonight, we're having a live event to talk about a very important new documentary that's in development called 97. It's a story about book bans that have happened and are still ongoing in Beaufort County schools in South Carolina. We've got some wonderful people to introduce you to tonight, including three of the students who've been fighting so strongly against this book bans and censorship and for the rights, their own rights, as well as the rights of their fellow students to read, to have their stories told, to be visible in the world. We're going to be joining also with Jodi Picoult, the noted author. She herself is a banned author and is involved personally in the Beaufort County school situation. And then Tom and Jennifer Wiggin. They are the producers of the film 97 and our co-hosts tonight from Atomic Entertainment. We want to share with you, I want to introduce you to some nice people. We want to share with you tonight about the situation there in Beaufort County. How these three students, Millie, Elizabeth, and Izzy, it's just so nice to be here with you tonight. Thank you for joining us. What your story is. I mean, it's interesting. We work on a lot of book bans here at EveryLibrary around the country. We're on the ground with a whole bunch of different schools and a whole bunch of different public libraries. I read a lot of news stories. I see a lot of transcripts from board meetings. They all tend to be about parents arguing with parents. You know, I think this book is inappropriate for kids. I think that book is perfectly appropriate for kids. My kids can handle it. The book bans and censorship stories are usually from the parent's perspective. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what's really going on in Beaufort County schools?
I guess I'll take it. What's going on in like what kind of sense? Just like kids at school board meetings, or
with the book bans? I mean, where did this come from? Why are they going after? Why so many? And what's it really like to be in a school where book bans are happening?
Well, I guess what's kind of going on is some parents decided that they thought we couldn't handle sexually explicit or pornographic material, but most of that material is not sexually explicit or pornographic. It is, in fact, they are, in fact, books that deal with rape and sexual assault as themes, or they deal with BIPOC or LGBTQ characters and themes. And I guess really the best way to describe it is it's kind of a misunderstanding of marginalized people and where they come from and kind of what they need and what we need as a community to come together and work together. So, yeah.
But I mean, to be in school right now where they say that you can't handle the books, you know, that seems to be, to me, either insulting or erasure. I don't want to be on the receiving end of that if I was you. I mean, what's it like in terms of the school climate right now? How parents are talking about this and how students are talking?
So I would definitely, I'll take this one. I would say that it's been hectic. I mean, we've graduated and, you know, we're on getting ready to go to college and stuff. But during those last couple months, whenever we were working on advocacy and activism and we were trying to prevent the book bans, it was just hectic. I mean, there were teachers that didn't want to speak out in fear of losing their jobs. I mean, the librarians are sick of being called groomers for just providing books. I mean, there are students, the students feel as if they're being cheated out of an education. And then like to see that the books that they've grown up reading, I mean, that they've spent reading in high school, like to see those on banned lists, I mean, it has had a tremendous impact because, I mean, those books helped shape their view of the world, helped shape their education. And to see things like The Handmaid's Tale or The Bluest Eye on banned lists, I mean, those are those are books that they loved and didn't have an issue with. And in fact, it helped them. And this might come as a shock, but students really only like to read books that they see themselves in. And I also think that the students are sick of being told that the root of issues in school come from books. I mean, we have that, and I know the students that I've talked to, and even myself, I mean, we have to deal with school shootings, actual drug abuse, sexual assault, and I mean, the list goes on, and none of those things are caused by a book. So those are the real issues, and I can say the students are fed up, the teachers are fed up, and the librarians are fed up.
So Lizzie, a lot of people are fed up, but what motivated you three to take a stand? Why did you want to step up in a way that a lot of our, I mean, no offense to any of your students, I mean, your fellow students, a lot of parents just sit there on their hands.
Was that Lizzie or Izzy?
Lizzie.
Okay. So I would say that one of the biggest things that I think the way that we've perceived it, so we started as DALO is the Diversity Awareness Youth Literacy Organization, which is a pro-literacy book club designed to promote diversity and empathy in our community, which was originated way before the complaints were first filed. But so I think that as students, it was kind of like, this is so much bigger than just an attack on books. This is an attack on literacy, diversity, democracy, free speech. And so it was like, honestly, there wasn't really a choice. And so it's also kind of shows that the way that public education is being attacked in our country. And, if these groups were told to start small and start local on school boards, then why shouldn't we start small by, acting against all of that? And so I think that it was representative of a really big issue in our society, and the repercussions of these book bans in any community are so much bigger than we can imagine. So if we can kind of counteract that now and at such a small level, then I think it's a good sign for the rest of this movement and the counter movement.
So Millie, if I may, what did people around the community think when a bunch of students got up and started speaking out and speaking for each other? I mean, a lot of the times parents are wishing that the students would do something, but I got to imagine that there's some blowback or some pushback.
I would say most of the community was definitely very supportive of us. There is a kind of, I would almost describe it as an adult DALO called FAB, Families Against Book Bans, that immediately formed to support us and show up with us at school board meetings. And most of the community has been very immensely helpful and supportive, as the majority of the community does not want these books banned. But, there have been people who are very angry that we are talking out and speaking out, and very, very just looking down at us, not happy that we're there speaking for the student's voice, when they say that they, in fact, these adults, who a lot of them don't even have kids in the district, say they are speaking for the student's voice. So I think it's definitely been a mix of reactions, but one has been stronger than the other.
Now, I understand this started last fall. There's been a book review committee going on. I understand that they've made some decisions about returning some of the books. Can one of you tell us a little bit about what's happening right now? There were 97 to begin with, and I'm not looking to have us do a lot of math here, but I know that they banned a couple permanently, right?
Yeah, so I can talk about that. So at this point, 61, I believe, of the books have been reviewed. And so of those, 3 of them were permanently removed, which just means that they're removed for 5 years until they're reviewed again. But also an important thing to keep in mind is that because procedure was breached in the fall and all of the books were pulled before they were reviewed, that those 36 books that haven't been reviewed yet have been inaccessible to students for a whole year at this point. And so that's what we have to keep in mind, is that yes, at this point, only 3 books have been removed, which is also not including the books that were originally in middle school libraries and have been removed from those. This is only high school. So also middle school has lost books. But then still, with the breach of procedure, there have still been books that haven't been reviewed yet that may be reviewed and deemed perfectly fine to go back in, that have still been inaccessible to students for this long period of time.
That's an extraordinary thing. I'm going to have a question for you all at the end, after we bring in our other colleagues here, about the advice that you will have for other students facing this. And I want to come back around to this, but you're talking about the books that have been banned and removed. I want to bring in author, friend of the DALO kids, Jodi Picoult. Jodi, you're a noted author, beloved, if I may say that, and banned. I mean, you've been banned or here, there, and everywhere. I mean, I got it written down here. Martin County, Florida, The Storyteller, which is a book about the growth of anti-Semitism and fascism in Nazi Germany. When that was banned in Florida, you wrote, there was a strange irony that a parent wanted this particular book removed because it felt a bit like history repeating itself. And you are, as Lizzie was saying, one of the books that is on the permanent, well, if the 5-year ban list, 19 Minutes has been banned there. I mean, what's it like to be on the receiving end of that? Forgive me.
So it never feels good.
No.
I can tell you that, just to kind of tell you where I am in the banning world in America right now, the reason I'm involved in this is because, yes, my book was banned here in Beaufort, but my book is currently banned in about 23, probably slightly more at this point, school districts in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
In Martin County, Florida, that was a particularly devastating one because about 90 books were banned by a single parent in one fell swoop, and 20 of them were mine. And that was really shocking. I had gotten quite used to being told by PEN America that 19 Minutes had been banned in yet another school district. But, you know, I really started to get angry when I heard about Martin County, particularly because in many of these places, like Martin County, to object to a book, you do not have to read the book. And you do not have to give a reason for objecting to the book. You just have to say it's not appropriate in your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That feels really problematic to me. I also think it's really important to contextualize this in a slightly bigger manner. We are talking particularly about the school district that affects these amazing young women. But since 2020, we have seen bans go up 1,100%. 1,100% in the United States. And it's gone from 200 titles to more than 2,500. And this is the statistic that really, really gets me. 11 individuals in the United States are responsible for more than 60% of all book bans. 11 individuals are making these decisions for all of your kids.
The Washington Post writer who did that article, Hannah Natson, deserves a Pulitzer Prize for that analysis.
Mm-hmm.
The work that's being done around the country to fight against what is the most absurd level of parental overreach. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are not attacks on particular titles. These are attacks on the themes, the stories, the people who are in those books.
These are attacks on LGBTQ and BIPOC authors and anyone who writes what these parents consider to be mature content, or as they've called it, in my case, porn. Here's a newsflash: I do not write porn. But you know, what's really egregious about this is that these parents continue to say that these books are exposing kids to revolutionary and salacious ideas. They are not exposing kids. As the author George M. Johnson, who is a banned author, says, what these books do is give kids tools to live in a world that has all these issues already in it. Mm-hmm. And we know categorically, because studies have been done, that what kids are really being exposed to are lives and mindsets that are different from their own. We know that when kids see themselves represented in books, they feel less marginalized. And we know that kids who've never encountered someone different or from a different part of the country or from a different culture who get to do it in a book are doing it in a very safe space and learning about a person or a culture that is different from them. That fosters empathy. So every time you remove a book from a bookshelf, you are taking away compassion, you are taking away empathy. And what you're doing is dividing people instead of bringing them together. That's what book bans do. They divide people. Books bridge those divides.
I mean, if we're in a situation where empathy isn't being allowed to exist because these stories are being summarily removed, I mean, you have to wait 5 years to become empathetic again. You know, in a place like Beaufort County, there's got to be long-term consequences to this for society, for our democracy. I mean, for these individual students' lives.
And John, it's happening. We're not waiting for the consequences, right? It is happening right now. And I can tell you how often what I hear is, your books are banned? Really? Why? People are shocked when they hear that. And then I say, well, they're not just banned in Texas and Florida. They're banned in Connecticut. They're banned in Massachusetts. And people go, what? Because those are supposed to be states where this isn't happening. It is happening, and it's happening closer to you than you can imagine. And, you know, taking a book off a shelf to prevent a kid from reading it does not allow you to erase history in America, whether that's enslavement or the treatment of LGBTQ people or the Holocaust or any of these other things that these parents are finding so objectionable. We don't get to change history, even if they think they can whitewash it. And as a result of the fact that, as you heard, I think it was Millie said it, the vast majority of people are against book bans in this
Yes.
country. The vast majority. We are catering to a very vocal minority. And that becomes a tremendous problem because we are seeing the consequences. We have already seen school plays being canceled because someone deems them objectionable. We are seeing challenges to curriculum by people who don't have any degree in education. We're seeing places like Target pull pride displays because someone complained. We're seeing a Tony-winning play on Broadway about Judaism and about anti-Semitism being picketed by neo-Nazis, right? So what we're doing is seeing that when you don't speak out against book bans, when you let these things happen because you think they're not going to happen to you, what you are doing is restricting the freedom to read, the freedom to think, and the freedom to live life authentically. And if you think that you are not, that we can just wait a little while longer, I will remind anyone who's watching this right now who happens to be a woman living in America, it is a lot easier to protect a right than it is to get it back once it's lost.
Amen. I want to bring in Jen and Tom from Atomic Entertainment. They're the producers of the documentary. I've got some, each of you, the Dalo kids, are speaking out. You've moved from having a local conversation to a national forum. And not just here. You've been on the speaking circuit. I mean, Jodi, your presence on social media. I mean, we've been paying attention. We've been retweeting each other a little bit too, which I appreciate. But I've seen you and heard you, and that documentation of it and the motivation that comes from learning about it. If I can just ask Jen and Tom a little bit about what caught your attention, what inspired you to produce a documentary about these events that are going on right now?
Well, honestly, we're big supporters of local newspapers. So our local newspaper had a headline that said "Students Fight Book Bans," and we read it, and we immediately looked at each other and said, "We need to do a film about this. We need to document this." So we got in touch with everybody, and they said, "Well, actually, a director from Massachusetts has already started doing that, but maybe you'd like to talk to her." So we did. So we got in touch with Kate Way, who is a filmmaker from Western Massachusetts, who had visited Beaufort and established relationships with the girls, and first started documenting the story. And she was willing to collaborate with us, and we all agreed that this story was a massive national story, and we felt that these unbelievable young women could lead us to that national story by not only telling their story locally, but then having them matriculate, as they have, which you'll hear about in a little while, to a national stage.
So can I ask the Dalo kids, if I may, what's it like to be on camera telling your story? I mean, you're living it, and then all of a sudden somebody's got a camera in your nose.
Oh, dang. I would say being on camera, like having them like on you and like whenever we're all together, it's definitely been overwhelming. But then, like, I mean, you just have to remind yourself, like, this is the reason why, this is who you're fighting for, these are the rights you want to keep, these are the schools you want to change, these are the students you want to impact. So I think that just like that in and of itself kind of takes away all of the anxiety, all of the nervousness. Which that's really it. I think it does get overwhelming, but it's worth it.
Well, I mean, partially it's easy to tell the truth, and you're in the middle of it right now. You're living it. You're showing up for people, and telling the truth is always easier. I mean, Jodi, why did you start paying attention to this? How did this come across your radar?
Well, I mean, I've been getting notifications for years that my books are banned. They were dribbling in, and then all of a sudden it became, a cataclysmic waterfall very quickly. Things ramped up very quickly between 2020 and 2022. And if I can go back and just tap onto something you said, John, earlier that I think is really important. We keep hearing from people my age and Jen and Tom's age, and there are a lot of parents who are fighting this, but we are not hearing so much from the kids. And that's why it's so deeply meaningful to see the work that Millie and Lizzie and Izzy have done, and to see the walkouts that have happened in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, by students, who are not standing for this anymore. I think that it is so important for the adults who are angry and who want to protect the freedom to read for their kids, to recognize that these kids have something to say too, and we need to be listening to them, because it is their minds that are being affected.
Well, I'm with you. I want to ask Jen and Tom a little bit about the choices about how to make a documentary about something. Of course, it's happening right now, but centering the students in this rather than it just being a big fight amongst adults who think that they're always right. I mean, I hope. How do you hope that this documentary is going to contribute to a bigger conversation about censorship and also students' rights?
Well, I mean, in the end, it is about the students. I mean, I'm angry about this. It affects me to some extent. I'm a parent, a grandparent, and it will affect our grandchildren if we don't do something about this. But we're not the ones feeling it on a daily basis. It's these guys feeling it on a daily basis. When they have a book ban overnight and you have that book taken out of the library already, and they come and get it from you, and it's a book about LGBTQ or I don't know. It could be about race. It could be about biracial parents. It could be about anything that helps them see themselves in books. It is not about us as much as it is about these kids. It affects how they live their lives.
I'm sorry, Jodi, real quick, but Jen just said something that I've been in a lot of book ban situations around the country, helping people on the ground. Did you say they went back and took the books back from the kids?
One of the students at a school board meeting said they had 3 books checked out of the library, and they had to take them back when the ban.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jodi. I just needed to hear that for real.
No, that's really important. I also do want to say, though, it is affecting adults too. And that's really important to know, that we've already seen attacks on the censorship of books at public libraries, books that are being taken away, like Nora Roberts, who writes, like sugary romances. If you think it's not going to affect you, don't blink, because it's already affecting adults as well. We've seen what happened in Lano, Texas. We've seen what's happening in Illinois. And we've also seen that Tennessee passed a bill saying that any publisher who circumvents a school district and sends banned books straight to a school is going to be legally liable for that. So that is going to start changing the landscape too of what is published. And that's the biggest thing that happens with censorship. Let it take root long enough, and new ideas and controversial ideas and things that make you think are no longer even going to be written about in the marketplace.
So back to Jen and Tom, if I may, these DALO kids are impressive. I mean, I've heard them speak in other contexts. They were at the recent big library conference in Chicago this past weekend. There's got to be some moments in making this documentary that are going to stick with you for years to come. And I'm assuming that some of it's with these kids. But can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be, on this side, behind the camera, as it were?
Well, it feels good to be right about it. I will tell you that, because we have so many people that approach us. I mean, everybody comes when there's a camera to say, "What are you filming?" When they find out what we're filming, it's a whole different conversation. It's sort of, these kids amaze us. They stood on stage in front of 1,000 people at a rally this weekend in Chicago that they were invited to attend, following Dr. Ibram Kendi, which is not an easy thing to do, and stunned people, not just with how together they are and how well they can speak about it, but about the subject. And this was a room of librarians and teachers and people who know very well about book bans, but hearing it live from students that are in the middle of a ban in their school, it's a wake-up call even to adults. So it's kind of an amazing opportunity. And we get to talk to people like Jodi Picoult, who immediately said yes when we asked, because we have to talk to authors who are banned and find their take on why and how ridiculous this is. We met with Ellen Hopkins this weekend. Juno Dawson, who wrote This Book is Gay. Amazing people. We're off to see Neil Gaiman next, who I don't think is banned, but has an awful lot to say about it. He's such a huge supporter of libraries and librarians. and it's changing our culture right now.
You know, I do want to say though, in terms of the quality of what's been happening, I'm always amazed by this is a deadly serious situation, right? But because we're all on the right side of history, there is a lightness to our spirit. You know, I mean, when we interviewed Jodi and she met the kids, I mean, she didn't pull any punches, as you're hearing now, which is what we needed. But there's a lightness to her. There's a joy to her, even expressing these tough things. And that's the way it's been with the young women too. That's the way it's been with everyone. And I asked Juno Dawson, I said, how do you keep your sense of humor in the face of all this? And she just said, hatred's so unattractive. You know, but that's the way this has been. Every time we get around people, especially with Millie, Lizzie, and Izzy, there is a light that shines and everybody feels better in it. And so that's kind of the way this has been proceeding.
I'm going to say this straight up. I can't wait to see this film, 97, when it's finished. When are you going to get it finished? And what happens next?
Well, what happens next is we have filmed probably a little more than half of the footage that we need for this film. The issue with this as a documentary is we didn't have the luxury of saying, hey, let's go make this documentary, raise a bunch of money, get a bunch of investors, do that sort of a thing. And then when we're all ready to go film it. It's happening in real time. We literally went to our first board meeting before we had a penny in the bank. And because it was important to be there, we were capturing and meeting these kids. So what's happening now is that we just got back from Chicago. We've been in DC. We met with Jamie Raskin. You know, we've had some great times and some great footage that we've captured. We're taking the next 2 weeks to put money in the bank. The next thing we have coming up is Neil Gaiman. We've got a roundtable of authors in New York. We've got to get to Nancy Mace. We've got to get to, you know, other people like that. And we have to sit down with Moms for Liberty. And I don't want to, but I do, because we do need to have them, you know, give their 2 cents to this. And I think it will ultimately show that they are the extreme vocal minority. They have 115,000 members, apparently. There were more than 3,000 high school students that turned 18 this year. 3 million high school students that turned 18 this year. That's not even. We just need to get this in front of people so that they understand you may not know it's affecting you. It is. You may not want to think it's affecting you. It is. But it's affecting the person next to you, and it's affecting the next generation. And so what we're doing right now is we're trying to put money in the bank. We definitely are asking for donations. We have a fiscal sponsor, which is the Film Collaborative, which allows you to donate and get a tax receipt for it. And you'll see it on our website, 97documentary.com. And everybody who, you know, we ran into so many people in Chicago, because there were 15,000 people at this event, who said, how can we help the film get made? What can we do to be involved in the film? There's 2 things you can do. One, you can donate and become a part of our family. People who donate get on our list. They get updates. You get some behind the scenes things, you know, some fun things like that, get to sort of know us as we're filming it. And the second thing is, if you go to our website, you can also go on the contact page. If you have a story about this, tell us. If there's something we need to know, somebody that was affected, a teacher, a librarian, a friend, a brother or sister, you know, tell us that story if it's something we need to know. We're only half done making this film. That said, what is our timing? Our
timing is probably going to be, we had always planned early next year. I think the best timing would be at the start of primary season, because this will be a campaign issue. And people need the information that this movie will contain to understand the issue itself and hold their candidates to task about it.
It is bad enough that there are 5 candidates speaking this weekend at the Moms for Liberty convention, one of whom was our former governor, Nikki Haley. And it's just, to me, it's unconscionable to support that, but.
Yeah, EveryLibrary is a political action committee for libraries, I mentioned earlier at the start of things, and we're doing a candidate pledge this year and into next year federal offices, state offices, down to the dog catcher, quite frankly. We want people to be known, to be on which side of the issue. And that we're going to be announcing our first round of candidates real soon. Jodi, when it comes to how people who are concerned both about the issues, but also with the culture of reading, folks who are readers, what do you want them to do?
Well, one of the biggest problems is that Moms for Liberty, like I said, they're that very vocal, loud minority. They have also picked up 500 school board seats this year alone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big ask to say, go run for your school board, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and a lot of people don't want to do that. Well, if you can't do that, show up to a school board meeting, read a letter about book banning. Make sure that if this is happening in your community, you call your local paper, your local radio station, you get them to show up at that school board meeting along with everyone else in your town who doesn't want book bans. Because sadly, what we are seeing is that shame works. That actually makes people back down from banning of books. They don't want to be seen. Schools don't want to be seen as being, restrictive or as being the censors or the bad guys. Because like you said, the good guys are never the ones who want to ban the books. So definitely speak out. We just have to, there's so many of us that don't want book bans. We just have to be louder than they are. And we're not talking as much as we need to. And that's part of the reason for my social media drive about this. People need to know it's happening, and people need to use their own social media to talk about it. That's something very easy that you can do. You can start a banned book club. You can do that in your community. You can do that with your book club and just decide this year, I'm only going to read banned books. Why? Well, let me tell you why. Again, what you're doing is spreading the information that this is endemic. It's happening all over. And most importantly, you need to engage with the people who say this is a hoax.
Right.
It is not a hoax. Taking a book off a shelf and making it inaccessible to kids is a ban. Even if it's temporary, it is a ban. Even if you can buy it on Amazon, it is a ban. There's a reason that we have school libraries, because there are kids who do not have access or money to be able to purchase a book or to go somewhere to get a book at a public library. That is why we call these book bans, and that is not a hoax. And any author who has been banned can tell you that. Any kid who has been prohibited from picking a book up off a shelf, there are libraries in Florida that are completely empty, because all the books in the school are under review, and they've been that way for months at a time.
It's a grave and sincere injustice. I mean, here at EveryLibrary, like I said before, we're a political action committee for libraries. We work on book bans every day around the country. I wish I had met the Dalo kids a long time ago. Since you started your fight, we've been able to set up through some good, generous donations from folks, and you mentioned Nora Roberts before. She was one of the folks who showed up early in the process to set up this site called Fight for the First. It provides free resources to local organizers, whether it's students or parents or people who care about the First Amendment or civil liberties. Folks, it's a place to gather and then to make your voice heard. It amplifies, it organizes, and it directs activity. So we're here to help other people. But I need some advice from the Dalo kids to close us out, please. What would you say to other young people, other students who are facing similar challenges in their communities? If you could all just take a shot at this, Millie, and then Lizzie, and then Izzy, please. What do you want people to know, your fellow students?
I would say to reach out. I think the biggest factor to our success is that we've all had each other, and we've all had our teachers who support us, and our mentors, and our parents sometimes, who really just help us carry this emotional and mental load. So I think my advice to any students would, to me, don't go it alone. You're going to kind of fizzle out if you do that. Work with each other. Your community is your greatest asset.
Amazing. Thank you.
I would say that this has been the most empowering experience of my life, but there's also a lot of efforts to kind of undermine our success because we are young and we're students. And so keeping that in mind, priorities always have to be being well researched and respectful, because frankly, you can't give anybody any reason to undermine your success because they're already going to try to. So, just like really make sure that you're always kind, even though it's really tough sometimes and people aren't going to be kind to you, but you're representing a movement now. And so make sure that you are factual and respectful and kind.
For me, I would tell students to use your voice. You have one. A school district cannot fire you. Just know that your voice has worth. Know that you matter. And don't allow anybody to make you feel as if you are nobody. And also, a little bit more advice for teachers. Don't teach your students, educate them. There is a big difference between teaching and educating. Teachers teach how to fill out a standardized test. Educators educate. If we had more education going on, we would not be in this predicament. So educate, and students listen and use your voice.
Izzy, I'm 500 years older than you are, and I think about my high school librarian, Miss Richter, all the time about that big difference that you just described. Jen and Tom, you've been our co-host tonight from Atomic Entertainment. Any closing thoughts, please?
The biggest closing thought is to say we are lucky to have met these kids and everybody involved in this film. We're really excited about making it. We're angry, but as Tom said, there is a lightness to this organization. There's a lightness to these people because we know we're going to make a difference. We know we're going to surpass that 115,000 membership of Moms for Liberty. Millie and Lizzie and Izzy and Dalo as a group, FAB, Families Against Book Bans, their mentor, Jonathan Haupt, who's been fantastic with the Pat Conroy Literacy Center, and our director, Kate, and our co-producer, Allison Rice, are irreplaceable. We have so much help on this film, but we're growing this family. We have another few months to do this. Please come on board and help us. If it's telling us a story or if it's making a $10 donation, any of that helps. We're also talking to publishing companies. We're talking to everybody about helping support financially. But there's something about creating a family and getting more and more and more people involved, because we know more and more people know about this and are spreading the word and are talking about it and are feeling comfortable doing that. And that's important to us.
Absolutely. I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank all of you tonight for being part of this and for letting EveryLibrary show up in support of the 97 as a documentary. The Dalo kids who are fighting it every day, and authors like Jodi and other banned authors. We are about 450,000 strong on social media, folks. We'd like to be able to get to that 1 million Americans for Libraries level. We need your help sharing about what we do, who we are. Click the invite button. It's by the live stream feed. And also, if you want to take some action, or if you want to support the actions that are being taken around the country, drop a dime on the good folks at 97documentary.com, and come back over to EveryLibrary and see what we're up to. It's been a pleasure. Millie, Lizzie, Izzy, thank you so much. Jodi, thank you for this opportunity to be here. And Jen and Tom, I'll co-host with you anytime. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.